Waterfall charts are a new type of chart introduced in Excel 2016. They are used to show the increase or decrease of a particular value which is usually involved with money. One example of it would be your monthly budget. So there are multiple increases and decreases involved in it. You get your salary, so your money is increased. Then you, let's say, buy groceries, so your money is decreased, and so on. If you want to show this in a particular visual, waterfall charts are the way to go. Another example of the usage of waterfall charts is to use it when profit and loss statements in finance are involved. You start off with revenues, which is an increase in money, and then you have other expenses which decrease your money, and you finally arrive at your profit. Let's see how we can create a waterfall chart to show increase or decrease in values in Excel.
The data that we are dealing with here is a simplified version of a profit and loss statement. Imagine you are running a furniture company and this is the profit and loss statement for you. We start off with gross revenue. So you have sold items worth rupees 1 lakh, furniture worth rupees 1 lakh. Then you have cost of goods sold. So all the raw material that goes into making that furniture, maybe it's the resin or maybe it's wood, whatever is the raw material that goes into the making of the furniture, it will be this expense, which is 30,000. After that, we have a small subtotal till this point. This subtotal is 1 lakh minus 30,000 and we end up at 70,000. It's called the gross profit. Then we have a few operating expenses. So maybe you did some advertisements. We have marketing expense. You are paying commissions to salesmen. Maybe you are having employees. So they have a salary, which is called payroll. Any expense on equipment. All these are your operating expenses. Once you have all of that, you subtract it from your gross profit of 70,000 and end up at 24,700. Which is 70,000 minus 10,000 minus this amount, and finally minus this amount. That is called the operating income. Once we have the operating income, which is nothing but a subtotal of your data, we have a few more expenses and incomes. So namely, we have interest revenue. Maybe if you have invested in a bond, which is giving you interest each and every month, this is the interest of that. If you have any loans that you have taken, and if you are paying interest on that, you have interest expense for that. And then you have loss from lawsuit. So that's another expense that you have, which is 9,000. You add this 4,500 and subtract these two items from operating income to end up at net income. Now, before creating a waterfall chart, it's very important to understand that gross profit, operating income, and net income, these three items are your subtotals. It's not additional money that you have received. So if I say gross profit is 70,000, it is simply 1 lakh that you received minus 30,000 that you paid for your raw material, ended up being 70,000. It is not 70,000 of extra money that you are getting. This is just a subtotal of your data. It is not your additional income. That's the same concept applied to operating income as well as net income. Once this concept is clear, let's say we have a question in mind. Let's say we are trying to improve our company and we want to maximize our profit. There are two ways to do it. One, either to increase your revenue or decrease your cost. That's how you can get a maximum profit. Revenue increase is not the way to go. Let's say we have decided that we cannot increase our revenue. So we need to optimize our company. We need to try and reduce cost. But from where do I start? How do I start? At what point? Do I decrease marketing? Do I decrease equipment, commissions, cost of goods sold? How do I know from what to start? I have limited resources and I can't spend it all by trying to reduce everything at once. Maybe I can focus on one or two items, reduce it, and then focus on the others. So where do I start? If you have a question like this in mind, select your data and insert a waterfall chart. After that, we'll be looking at how we can analyze the waterfall chart. So first, select your entire data, go to insert and add a waterfall chart. The icon is this, which says insert waterfall or stock chart. Click on this, and the first icon that you have is the waterfall chart. Click on it and you have your waterfall chart inserted. I'll be expanding this to just make it more visible. In the legend, we have three items: increase, decrease, and total. Increase is shown in blue, decrease in orange, and total in gray. Right now, as you can see, we have no totals because there is nothing in gray. Each and every increase in money will be in blue. Here you can see gross revenue is increasing. So we have 1 lakh here of increased blue column. Then we have the orange column here, which is minus 30,000. Whenever you have negative values, that will be the decrease item. And you can think of it as removing a part of your column from the increased column. So think of it as gross revenue being 1 lakh, then having cost of goods sold of 30,000 and removing this much part, which is 30,000 from gross revenue, which will end up at 70,000. So if you remove this 30,000 area from the first column, which is this part, you will end up somewhere around here, which is 70,000, which is shown in the next column of gross profit. But look at how Excel is treating it right now. Excel is not looking at it as a subtotal. It is showing it as an increase in money. So as you can see, we have 70,000 of increased money. But is gross profit actually an increase in our money, an increase in our sales, or any place where we have received money? Not really. It's just a small subtotal of our first two columns. So if I show this as increase in money, it would actually be wrong. Then how do I set this as a subtotal? You can set it by selecting your chart. We have already done that. Then clicking on all these columns. As you can see, each and every column is selected now. We have these blue circles at all edges of all the columns. Now I want to make gross profit as the subtotal. Right now I have everything selected. So I will again click on gross profit to only select that. Again, select the chart, click on any column to select all the columns. Then again, click on that specific column that you want to change the total of. So I want to make gross profit total. Clicking on it will only select it. As you can see, we have different columns apart from this getting faded away. So these are faded. This is the one in focus, which means that this is the one that we have selected. To make it a total, you have to now right click on the column and select the option set as total. Click on it and it will be set as a subtotal of your data. You can do the same by deselecting everything now. Going to operating income. Again, that is a subtotal. Doing the same for net income, because that again is a subtotal. It's not actual money that you are receiving. So we can do the same for it by clicking, selecting everything, again clicking on operating income, then right clicking and setting it as total. You can do the same for net income. Click on it to select everything. Again click on it, right click and set as total. Now you can see that we have gross revenue at the beginning of 1 lakh. We remove this 30,000 part from it, end up at this level, which is shown by gross profit. Now we have this much column remaining. From that, we subtract this much part for marketing, this much part for commissions, then payroll, and then equipment, and finally end up at operating income. You subtract all these parts, you remain at this level, which forms your operating income. Then you have an increase in the area of your column by interest revenue. So you have an increase there. Again, you have two decreases of interest expense and loss from lawsuit, and you end up at net income, which is this much part. Now, this tells you the actual picture of where your income is coming from and where your expenses are going towards. you can straight away see that the size of these columns help you determine the magnitude of an expense or an income. We start off with gross revenue, but if you look at the expenses, the biggest expenses are shown by the area of these columns. I can straight away see that cost of goods sold is the biggest expense that I have because that's the biggest decreased column. Then we have payroll because that's the next biggest column in terms of decrease. Then we have items like marketing, loss from lawsuit being the other key items. Now, if I'm having limited resources, I can focus on decreasing my expenses for cost of goods sold and payroll. That is the area that I want to focus towards, because if I decrease this, my major cost, my major expenses will also go down, because these are the ones that are having the major expenses. Maybe you can, let's say, if you want to decrease cost of goods sold, maybe you can get in a supplier which supplies you material at a cheaper cost, not changing the quality of your material. If you want to decrease your payroll, you can either fire some employees or maybe hire more efficient employees so that you require less amount of employees. Or maybe you can also tell these employees to work harder or just motivate them so that your revenue can also increase at the same amount of payroll. That's how you analyze a waterfall chart. To recap on what we learned here, waterfall chart shows you increase, decrease, and total of something. This is used to see profit and loss statements or even your personal expenses, anywhere where money or anything where increase or decreasing items are involved. This helps you look at the overall picture and tell you what is the major income or the major expense that you have in your data. That is why you use a waterfall chart. That's it for this lecture. And in the next lecture, we'll be looking at heat maps, a map that is not there in Excel, but we will be creating it using the method of conditional formatting.